Good afternoon, everyone. It's 1 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to the NGA Aeronautical Dissemination Team's monthly webinar series. My name is Alex, and I'm excited to be hosting this series again. Today we're going to be covering user maps, ADSB products, and the Aero app, how they work together, and Air Force weather. So just as a reminder, the webinar is being recorded, and it will be stored on the aeroapp.info website, as well as our YouTube page for later reference. So we're going to start out with some quick introductions from our dissemination team. So I'll go ahead and hand it over to Bruce Farnham.
Hi, I'm Bruce Farnham. I'm the Dissemination Program Officer at NGA. Been in this position approximately 7 years working with the Aero app. And as Alex said today, we're going to go over 3 more features. And usually each of these meetings will do 3 features. At any time, if you have questions for me specifically, feel free to ask. And in the question and answer session at the end, I'm happy to answer any questions Aero app related or dissemination related or NGA related. Over.
Thanks, Bruce. So like I mentioned, my name is Alex, and I am the Deputy Program Officer for the Aeronautical Dissemination Team. I've been with NGA for about 3 years now, and I started out as an area analyst. I'll go ahead and hand it over to Hilton Software so that they can introduce themselves as well.
I'm Hilton Goldstein, founder and CEO of Hilton Software. We are the contractor for Aero app, and we've added these new features, and hopefully you like them. And appreciate getting your feedback, and very happy to show you those today.
All right, thanks, Hilton. So next up, we're going to go over just some quick rules of engagement for the webinar. Please remember to mute your microphones during the demonstration unless asking a question. We do welcome questions throughout, so please feel free to speak up or enter your questions in the chat. Our team will be monitoring the chat and addressing any questions that come up. If we're not able to address your question during the webinar, we're happy to reach out directly and provide our contact information as well. The agenda for today, we're going to start with some user maps, and then we will move into ADSB products and the Aero app. Like I mentioned, how they function together, how they work, as well as the Air Force weather. We'll then move into the Q&A portion and open discussion for you all to ask us any questions that you have. So with that, I will hand it over to Hilton.
So let me jump in with user maps. So what user maps allow you to do is to basically bring your own maps. And so what you can do is you can generate Embed Tiles, and there are a couple ways to do that. But as soon as you've generated an Embed Tiles, if you can you just drop that into the documents folder. So for example, you can use iTunes, whatever. You just drag it across from a laptop. And what that allows you to do is then tap on the Maps button at the very bottom of the moving map, where you would typically select IFR, VFR, etc. And you will see any Embed Tiles that you have in your Documents folder. You will see that come up as an option. So, for example, what I was hoping to show was the Fort Rucker range chart. We basically took that, we created an Embed Tiles from that, and then we just dropped it into the documents. And then when you tap on the Maps button at the very bottom, one of the options there was Fort Rucker. And then you could zoom in, and what it would do was then overlay that on top of your moving map. The great thing with this is that you're not reliant on us to produce all the charts. There might be some cases where you have some charts that you don't want to send to us. For security reasons, those you can then process those however you want in your environment, drop them onto your iPad, and you will just see them overlaid, and they never come to us at all. It's strictly, you can obviously be able to drop these even on the redacted iPads that have no internet connectivity. So it's a very, very powerful feature, allowing you to essentially sort of customize your moving map for your mission. You can drop multiple user maps on there. So you might, for example, be flying from one airport to another, and you might want some imagery between those airports. So it's really up to you, and you can display as many or as few of those as you want. When you do make the selection of whatever user map you want, Aero app will move that option to the top, so you'll see those will be checked. Again, wish I could show you. I'm not sure why my share button isn't working, but yeah, it's super powerful. Basically, bring your own charts and drop them onto Aero app. And then, again, the great thing there is that whether it's just the sort of the base layer or your user map, everything still goes on top of that. So if you are going to be displaying airways or air refueling routes, special use airspaces, airspaces, etc., all that vector data still goes on top of your user map, so you don't lose that. You can even drop an instrument approach procedure. So you could have, for example, Scott Air Force Base, and then drop an instrument approach procedure right on top of your user map. So it includes all that flexibility within the moving map as well. It's not like if you're showing a user map that you lose any other. It's great. It just takes your user map and drops it on top of the moving map, and then you can layer everything else you want on top of that as well, including weather and other imagery. So yeah, hopefully that it explains it. Wish I could show it. I'm not sure why we're having these technical difficulties, but hopefully that explains it. Do you want me to keep going with ADSB, Alex?
Sure, that would be great. We can move
Okay.
into ADSB and Air Force Weather.
Okay, great. So I'm sure most of you are familiar with ADSB. Basically, take a hardware device and connect it to your iPad, and that hardware device is an ADSB receiver. There are basically two channels. There's the 978 and the 1090. Typically, 1090 is when aircraft sends out its position, so you pick up traffic around you, and then the 978 is typically data that is sent from various towers, and that data includes METARs and TAPs and NextRad and icing. They've just added a whole bunch of other features, or what they call products. So, for example, lightning. So we added lightning as well as the other ones, icing and everything in there as well. When you do connect the ADSB receiver, Aero app does provide the status sort of indicators. So if you tap on the ADSB button at the very top, those status indicators will appear, and that lets you know if you are receiving GPS information, GPS altitude, if you're receiving the uplink. I think that just gives you a good status of, is your connection good, etc. And then moving on to the moving map, you can see in that image there on the left, that's the NextRad. You'll often notice in those red areas, you'll see lightning strikes. And Aero app actually has a pretty unique way of showing lightning. It shows lightning typically as a lightning bolt, because we're all familiar with that. But then in addition to that, what it does is it will actually color the lightning in different ways. So recent lightning is yellow. If the lightning is more than a few minutes old, it's actually gray. What that allows you to do is basically look at a storm system and the lightning and see a trend. So for example, if the gray lightning is more to the west and the yellow lightning is a little more to the east, you can tell that the movement of that cell has been west to east. And so not only does it give you current lightning status, but it actually shows trends as well, which is actually really, really useful. As a pilot, you want to know that the lightning's coming your way or moving away from you or whatever. So when you look at the sort of those lightning bolts in Aero app, just be aware of the different color. We only use two. We use gray and we use yellow. Gray is kind of older, and yellow is current, or somewhat current, like within the last couple minutes. So look for that. We also have icing and turbulence, and those are actually altitude dependent. So we have a slider at the bottom of the pop-up that allows you to select the different altitudes. So obviously, if you're at 28,000, you care about icing and turbulence at 28,000. So there's a slider at the bottom of that pop-up that allows you to select the altitude. And as soon as you select the altitude, Aero app immediately displays the appropriate turbulence or lightning. I'm sorry, turbulence or icing that you've that you've selected, and that it'll show at that appropriate altitude. You can also use this if you wish as kind of a pre-flight, or perhaps let's say you're climbing to altitude, you may want to take a quick look and see what the current turbulence and icing conditions are at different flight levels. So this is a really, really excellent tool, and it only takes a couple seconds. You just slide it to 32,000, 28,000, whatever you want to look at. You might notice a whole lot of icing or turbulence at a certain altitude and select a different altitude. So it's not only good for in flight, sort of what's coming up, what am I going to encounter, but also it might make a difference when you're either climbing or descending, to know what sort of a better altitude might be for that. In that pop-up there, you can see we actually have a whole bunch of different products. So yeah, we encourage you to tap on the options bar at the bottom of the moving map and take a look at those. But it's pretty self-explanatory. You will notice the options there that have an asterisk next to them on the right-hand side. So for example, we'll say icing with an asterisk. And then if you look at the bottom, you'll see there's an asterisk next to the control that allows you to set the altitude. So and what that means is the ones with altitude, sorry, the ones with the asterisks allow you to set the altitude, which is what I've been describing with turbulence and icing. So yeah, ADSB is great. It's inexpensive. You buy a device, you get free weather and traffic. This webinar is about the ADSB products, but I also want to throw in that there's traffic in there. So just from safety point of view, we always encourage you to have that traffic on and see traffic around you. Yeah, it'll show the altitude and various other information about traffic around you. So typically, we would recommend having NextRad, lightning, and traffic on, for example. And then you can use the icing and the other ones as you're flying along to just see what weather conditions are coming up ahead of you. But typically, NextRad, lightning, and traffic would be the kind of the obvious ones in flight. So that's ADSB. If there are any questions at any time, please feel free to ask.
Hilton or Bruce, either one of you, can you elaborate? Are all ADSB products compatible with Aero app?
Yeah. Oh, you go ahead, Hilton.
Okay, sure. So basically, our intention is absolutely to be compatible with everything out there. That's our intention. We don't play favorites. It just, quite frankly, doesn't matter to us what you want to use. And we don't even just doesn't matter. For the simple reason that the way the data gets transferred from an ADSB receiver to the iPad is pretty standard. It's called GDL90. So essentially, as long as you can understand one ADSB receiver, you can understand all of them. And so that way, we don't really have to sort of support new ADSB receivers. So if a new one came on the market, today, there's almost 100% chance that we just automatically support it. So I just kind of want to throw that out there that things should just work. Now, there are a couple products out there that do not that are not as open as we would like, and And the couple that I can think of, I believe the Stratus 2 and the Garmin ADSB receivers sort of don't play nice in that regard. But basically all the other ones, we support Bluetooth as well as Wi-Fi. So if you want to look at the eye levels, if you want to look at, I mean, there are a whole bunch. The Stratus 3, but again, there's pretty much every device out there is going to be compatible except for the couple that I mentioned. And Bruce, I might have forgotten a couple others, but
there is a couple that are proprietary to ForeFlight, like the Scout, that they had built for them. But most of the other ones that are GDL90, we have no problems with. And if you ever go out and purchase one, let's say the Aero's Stratus, make sure you get the Stratus 3 because Stratus 1 and 2 were proprietary. They came out with Stratus 3 so everyone could use it.
Yeah, and we found that Stratus is a pretty good solid ADSB receiver. Yeah, the one place where these receivers do get where there's no standard is what's called a status message. So we do look at that status message for things like battery, because your battery level is not part of the GDL90 spec. So what we do is we actually go look at all these proprietary messages. For example, Stratus 3 or the duals, the Bluetooth duals, or the eye levels, or whatever other ADSB receiver. They basically send out their own unique status message, and that's where we get that battery level from. So we really try to play nice with everything that's out there. And basically, if someone came to us with an ADSB receiver, we'd certainly want to work with them. And so we do not deliberately exclude anyone. We absolutely, the more we support, the better. So yeah, and thanks, Bruce, about Scout. I forgot about that one. Yep. Just a couple things about ADSB. You're going to get your weather information from towers. So often, if you're sitting on the ground, you're not going to get ADSB. If you're at an airport that has a tower next to you, there's a good chance you will get it. But I am probably 5-6 miles away from a tower in Florida where it's really flat, and we do not get ADSB. So ADSB is really designed for when you hit 500 feet on your climb out, you start getting that information. The METARs come along every couple of minutes. The radar comes along every few minutes. So it might take a couple of minutes to sort of start populating and getting the weather for your immediate vicinity, whether it's METARs, TAPs, NextRad, things like that. And then what Aero app actually does is it buffers all this information so that anytime you want to switch between NextRad and icing, you don't have to wait for that icing to come in. It's already there. And so the way we do it and the buffering and all that advanced data processing that we do in Aero app, kind of in the background, just makes the whole it makes it pretty makes it pretty seamless, where you can just switch between different products, different altitudes. You can turn things on and off. It pretty much looks like it's just a continuous stream coming in. Yeah, I just want to let you know about that, being on the ground and flying. And then also the other thing about ADSB is typically what's going to happen is you're going to get the information around you. So just because the bandwidth is limited, if you're flying in Florida, it's not going to be sending you data about Seattle. So it really sends you information. Each tower basically sends out information probably 250 miles around itself. But as you kind of get higher and as you start hitting more towers, you could see 4 or 5 towers at any different time. You'll be basically grabbing data from each one of those towers. And so your area that you see basically just keeps growing and expanding. So typically what's going to happen is you're going to see the METARs and TAPs and all that, NextRad, everything, typically, within a few hundred miles of your position. But that's usually by the time you get far away anyway, that cell's moved. So yeah, I just want to kind of give you some of those little bits of information about ADSB and how that might differ from what you expect when you're looking at a browser or some other type of weather provider like that. Okay, and then so that's actually a good segue into Air Force weather. So so we have essentially a pipeline to Air Force weather. We get Air Force weather updated it's like several times a minute. We're actually getting data. So it's basically this continuous stream that's just basically pouring into our databases. And what we do is then we go through that those METARs and TAFs. We find essentially the latest ones. We compress that data because if we didn't compress that data, it would be pretty big. So we compress it and we send it out. So when your iPad downloads Air Force weather, it's actually grabbing Air Force weather for the whole world. And by doing that, it doesn't matter if you have to deviate somewhere. If you go off your route a little bit, we do not download weather for your route. We just download it for the for the whole for the whole world. And so you can go to any airport and just look up their METARs and TAFs at any time. That weather does go with you. So if you download that directly immediately before you take off, you'll have that latest weather. Obviously, the METARs over time will get old, and so will the TAFs, but the TAFs obviously last longer. But then hopefully you can augment that weather with ADSB. So basically by the time you get to 500 feet, 1,000, 2,000, whatever, some altitude where you can start picking up the ADSB towers, you'll then, Aero app is smart enough to know that METAR that you just received from ADSB is more recent than the one that you received, over the internet, because that one's now older. And so it's smart enough to do that. On the right-hand side there, those kind of blue buttons, or those blue indicators, which are a little small. Aero app will actually tell you the data source of those METARs. So it will either tell you Air Force weather or it'll display ADSB, and that way you will know, from where that METAR came.
Hilton, 1 second. Alex, can you allow me to share my screen?
Sure.
There we go. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
All right. If you want to continue, I'll just try and follow along. I can also backtrack in a minute to show the moving map, custom moving map.
Okay. Yeah.
So you just tell me what you want me to push.
All right. So yeah. So basically, what I was explaining is, in this case, Bruce, you probably tapped on that Cape Pub Airport, and so what Aero app will do is it will basically look and sort airports at a distance out from the airport you selected. So if you look in the middle there, you'll see Butts is 26 miles. The next one's 32, 39. So it's kind of useful, so you can see as you're moving away from that airport. It just turns out that all of these are VFR. So if you look on the left there, it's green, it's VFR. If it was marginal VFR, it would be blue. If it's IFR, it's red. If it's low IFR, it's magenta, which is the kind of the typical colors for those.
I can try moving up to the northeast and see what we have up there.
Yeah, I think we got some weather up there, so that would be good if you could do that, maybe New York or something. And then on the right-hand side, you can see there where it says Air Force weather.
And why you?
Yep.
Just happen to be behind it. This
right
is
there, so you can see how. Yeah, so that's a great example. And if you zoom in there, you'll be able to, whatever resolution you've created that user map, that's what Aero app will display. Yeah, Bruce, can you tap on the maps button in the bottom there?
I don't have a whole lot on this one.
Yeah, so there you can see user map. No, that's fine. So right there you've selected Fort Carson. You could, if you tapped on, Baghdad, for example, it would show that one. And again, it's showing you that it's. You'll notice that they're alphabetical, except for the ones that are selected. It moves those up to the top. Yep, and then there's Baghdad. So it's really as simple as that. You just drop it into documents, and you go to maps, and you zoom in, and you got all your imagery. Right? Yeah. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go to different airports and just take a look and see at whatever weather is available. I know there's weather up in the northeast. So what happens is when the METAR gets read into Aero app, there's actually logic in the code that goes through and takes a look and determines based on the visibility and the cloud cover as to whether it's VFR, marginal VFR, IFR, or low IFR. All right, so yeah, so I don't know, maybe that storms move through, but anyway, yeah, so it does that. It can also show sort of little dots on the moving map, and that's very useful for if you have a whole lot of green dots or red dots on there.
It looks like it moved out.
Yeah. All right. So in this case, we just everything's really good weather, but it's kind of obvious what would happen on the left hand side. Those would just change, and you'd see that. So yeah, that's Air Force weather. Again, it is worldwide. You do take it with you. Yeah, that's it.
All right. Thanks, Hilton. Thanks, Bruce, for getting that pulled up.
Yeah, thanks, Bruce, for
and I'll jump into ADSB here for a second. These are those buttons you talked
All right,
about.
so we will go ahead and move into our Q&A portion. Just as a reminder, as always, if you have any questions or run into any problems with the app, please feel free to visit the support tab on aeroapp.info. Fill out the Contact Us form with any problems that you're having or information regarding the issue, and then a representative from Hilton Software will receive your request and work with you directly to resolve the problem. So at this time, we'll go ahead and move into that Q&A portion or open discussion if anyone has anything.
Hello, Bruce and Hilton. This is Edward Murr from Norway. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Good to hear from you.
Norway uses Embed Tiles to a large extent, and we are actually producing all of our aeronautical maps in that format. And we also make a package with more than one map scale in the Embed Tiles, and that is also working great. And I also tested that in the Aero app earlier on. So we are very happy with using Embed Tiles for maps on our system. We're also using, for the time being, we're primarily using ForeFlight as the app for the Air Force, because then we also have the integration of Jeppesen flips in that system.
That's excellent. You guys have done good work, and especially on the maps I saw you created.
Yes, and there's several ways of generating the maps. When I did most of the conversion, I used the scripting and using the GDale library. That's maybe not for everybody, but there are several solutions for converting the maps. I have one question, and that's nothing directly to do with what we have been talking about today, but we have a MDM setup that is with the keys for MDM, and that's not working anymore. Is that do we need new keys, or is it a different way of accessing the data today than earlier?
Yeah, if you just contact us, let us know. Occasionally we change those keys. What I'm guessing what happened there is there were requirements from Amazon to actually change the bucket names of the buckets where the data goes. So we actually had to move all the buckets over. We made it completely seamless for everyone else, but with MDM where you have those keys, yeah, we just we need to get those new keys out to you. But as soon as we get those new keys out to you, you should just plug them in and everything should just work. So
Okay.
Yeah, and we
Do you
don't
just
see
want to
that.
shoot me an email and I'll forward it to Helm Software?
Yeah, and again,
directly to do Edwin or to the Aero distro email?
Do both, just to cover yourself.
Sure. Thank you. Another question is like other types of maps, like vector layers, like using KML or other formats. Do you have done any work on that one?
Yeah, KMLs are supported in Aero app.
Okay. Do you have support for KML with different type of icons, like packaging it in a KMC file? Will that also work?
Yeah, I do not believe we have that, but again, let Bruce know about that. We can add that and we can take a look at it. And then typically what we do is, reach out to you to get some examples. And so during development, we'd be happy to work with you and make sure that, what we're developing, is the right thing. And then the more example files we can get from you, the better. And this also brings us to another point here is that Aero app really is your EFB, and so we love getting feedback. We like getting example files. We like working with pilots and crews to understand your mission and develop Aero app around that. We don't want to push anything onto you. The more we can work kind of as a team collaboratively to get these features out to satisfy your requirements, your mission. That's kind of our goal with Aero app. So yeah, this collaboration would be great.
Okay. I can send you some examples. I'm not sure if it's the time for doing that, but I can send you some examples I have made for flight. So we are using different vector KMC layers and also using the possibility to additional information. So we actually can code or put the HTML code into the KMC file to show pictures and other information. So that's a standard functionality in ForeFlight.
All right, yeah, we'd be happy to take a look. Just if you can send that information to the Aero team, like Bruce and Alex, yeah, we'd be happy to add that to the list.
Yeah, and also what I have a great success is like to because like in the Nordic countries like Norway, Denmark, Finland, Sweden, we get the maps from the other countries. But what I've been doing is to kind of cut the Embed Tiles along the borders, so it's kind of looking seamless because it just the area of the tiles outside the country border is just transparent, so it looks like it's looks like just one map. And maybe I can just show you one slide if you have time to do that. Let's see if I'm able to do that, if that's okay with you.
Sure, if Alex can share, let you share.
Are you able to see a presentation now?
Not yet.
Okay. Let me see. The kind of same problem for me that I'm not able to actually share anything. I'll just try one more time.
Not sure if it's going to work today, but I'd be happy to set something up later
Yeah.
so that we can all check it out.
Yeah, but Edwin and Hilton, I can send you some example what we have been doing. And it's actually working really great when they have been clipping the Embed Tiles along the borders, so it looks like a seamless map. Is actually 4 different maps together shown at the same time.
Yeah, no, that's great. And we actually do that in some places where, like, for example, let's say we wanted to get out jogs for Afghanistan or the Middle East, or whatever the case is. Yeah, and we do that cropping as well, to crop it to certain countries. But yeah, we definitely like to take a look at what you got, and put the best of what we got together and get that out for our Aero app users.
Yep. Yeah, I'll send you some examples from what we have been done, but that's like a picture from 4Flat, just to be aware of that.
Okay.
But everybody, I think, is a lot of people in the Air Force and US military also using 4Flat, so that's not a big surprise, I think.
All right, yeah, send us what you got. We'd be happy to take a look and see what we can do.
Okay, thank you. I'm not primarily working with that anymore, but I have a colleague that took over my job position. So, but I'm trying to get a little bit up to speed and see what's happening with the Air app, because we have done a lot of great things with that app, and especially for us to have the possibility to access DoD flips is great.
Excellent.
Oh, thank you very much.
Okay, nothing more from me.
Any other questions out there?
Are there any features that people are interested in that we do not currently do in Aero app you'd like to see us add?
I think I have a very long list, so I think I can send some of them to you. So
Okay.
But I can look into that and give you some examples of what we are looking for in Norway. And also, we are cooperating with the police helicopter service, so we're also doing stuff together with them.
That's excellent. And for the folks in the U.S., we're adding filing flight plans. So that's something to look forward to.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Well,
Thank
if there are no other questions, thank you all for attending our webinar today. For more information on our features and updates, please be sure to visit aeroapp.info or contact our dissemination team directly at aerodistro@nga.mil. We look forward to seeing you in October for a discussion on enhanced orbits, preferred routes, and mountainous areas. Everyone have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.